Hello everyone, my name is Lydia and I mean it's been a while if you've been on this channel before. I haven't made a video in a long time, but it is my favorite time of year, starting this Sunday. It is officially the beginning of autumn. We just had the lovely harvest moon, which was like a super moon. It was so beautiful. And I thought, what a better time than to share with you a whole mess of autumnal reads. I got all different categories. I got books I've read and books I haven't read yet. I limited myself to the physical books I have on my shelf. I have audiobooks that I'm sure I could dig through and recommend, and other books that I've, read and gotten rid of just because I didn't think I'd read them again. But let's just start with what I got. So the first selection I will have for you is Cozy Mysteries, okay? For this cozy autumn season, I read this cozy mystery, In the Company of Witches. I'm going to try to flip the video so that you can actually see. I absolutely love this last year so much that I got the second book to read this year. I'm probably going to take it with me on my trip to Vermont. But I just loved this. It was so cute. It had this like small town, very like Gilmore Girls-esque, and the setting's very like, the characters are very like Practical Magic-esque. It's this like family who runs this inn, and it had like a good theme and heart that ran through it, a fun little mystery. It was very like whimsical and magical, and I loved the characters, and it was just exactly what I wanted. And so often these ones aren't quite what I want. Like I want something cozy, but I still want something that's well written and not super formulaic, and this did it for me. So I'm very excited to get into the second one. The next is two books by an author I have not read yet. I'm not sure if this is a series or just kind of her thing. And I'm really not sure if it's autumnal because I haven't read it, but it does kind of fit into this mystery section, and that is A Death in Door County and Death in the Dark Woods. You see little old Squatch there? I love him. Anyway, I've read the back of these books. They sound exactly up my alley. If you know me, you know that me and my roommate wrote a book together that is like small town Wisconsin, and there's a murder mystery in there, and it's, we tried to be atmospheric and fun, and this is all small town Wisconsin vibes, and I'm very excited to pick these up. I might take one of these with me to Vermont as well. All right, so that kind of does it for my cozy mystery section. Next, I'm trying to go fast. Hopefully I'm not talking too fast, but I got a lot of books here. So next, if you want, we can stick in the cozy, and I'll tell you my two biggest fantasy picks, which are really no surprise. At least one of them is. I think everyone recommends it this time of year. It is The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Autumn is just where to start these books. They're outside, but it's not like it's like hot summer outdoors. It's, they're traveling across this cool, crisp autumn adventuring. Like I mean, look at the color palette, it's autumn into winter is the perfect time to read these, and they're long. So like, might as well start it when you're going to be inside more. I'm sorry, that scared the crap out of me. That was the cats, I think. Next I have the Redwall series. I just pulled the first book off my shelf, but this series is so underrated. I never see it talked about during book hauls or anything like that, and it's just great. It's a long series, but you don't have to read all the books, and you can kind of pick up anywhere. I mean, I suggest starting with the first book, Redwall, but it's perfect. Like if you like the Beatrix Potter, Brambly Hedge, like cute little woodland animal vibe, this is that, but it's like a fantasy setting. There's warriors. It's all set in this Redwall Abbey, which is like an old church building, and they have this like church community self-sustaining in this Redwall Abbey, and they're kind of they really believe in peace, and they're very like, in community. They're kind of almost pacifists a little bit. But then war comes to their doors, and they realize maybe it's time again that they need to produce warriors. It's so good, guys. I love this series. Okay, up next, what should we do? Okay, I have some like cozy magic books, kind of like witchy, but like not like wicked witchy, It's like the like, oh, I want to be in my garden and make herbal remedies witcheriness. And that's the Practical Magic series. That doesn't belong in there. This is the Practical Magic series. There's one more book, which I thought I owned, but I don't think I do, so I'll have to pick that one up. Practical Magic is obviously the first book, and that's the one that the movie's made off after. I think a lot of people don't realize this is a book series. The Rules of Magic is about the ants in the Practical Magic movie when they were young. So this is like the 90s, right? This is like 60s, 70s. And then this is like Salem Witch Trial period. This is a prequel way back in the day. It's kind of like where that lineage of family started. In the beginning of the movie, you see that woman like with the noose around her neck as they're like introing how their family has always been. That's this story. And then there's another book, which again, I thought I owned, but I don't have it here, which is the sequel. And they're going to make that into a movie, I think. And it is about like still the ants and like Sally and her sister, and then her little girls. So I haven't read that one yet. I've read all the other three, but I'm excited to read that one before the movie comes out. The same author created The Museum of Extraordinary Things. This was a cover purchase for forever ago, and I just haven't picked it up. I need to pick it up. And I also picked up The Red Garden by her. She writes all sorts of things. A lot of, I think of them are kind of murder mystery. This one caught my attention more than some of the other ones she wrote, so I picked that up. The other one I have is Wayward, another one that the cover got me on, but so did the description. I haven't read this book yet. I bought it, I think, the year it came out. It's time, but alas, there's only so many hours in the day. And then I also picked up this one that was really heavily, the author did a good job like marketing on TikTok, and she got me. The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic. She pitched it as like Gilmore Girls meets Practical Magic, and I was like, sign me up. If that's not fall in a nutshell. So I bought this one. I haven't read it yet. I also bought the first in that like Myrtlewood, I think it's called, series called like The Accidental Side Effects of Magic. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't remember the title. I can try to find it and let you guys know what it is. I like that, and that was very Gilmore Girls-esque. It's about like a single mother and her daughter, but it's also like kind of like Halloween Towny, where they go to this like town there everyone has magic, and there's vampires, and kind of Buffy in that way. I enjoyed reading through that book, but I didn't really like certain aspects of it towards the end, and it just kind of made me go like, I don't know that I read the rest. I think there's like 3 more books in the series, so I unhauled that one before, but I enjoyed that one, and I think a lot of people who like this Gilmore Girls Practical Magic vibe would probably enjoy it, especially if they like Buffy, or especially if they liked Halloween Town. Okay, switch gears a little bit. Have a small stack of kids' books or middle grade books, which I think often are the best. I love children's literature. I think it has got so much more heart than adult literature most of the time. I'm just gonna bleed from middle grade into YA, because some of these I really feel like fit in the middle, and especially if they're scary, that's like up to discretion. So I've already read Coraline. This is one of the scariest books I've ever read. It's a great book. I think this is Neil Gaiman's best work. Haven't read all of his work, but it is his best work. It's terrifying. Some maybe even scarier than the movie. you'll scare, if you have like a vivid imagination, you will scare yourself with this one. But it's well worth the read. I'm sorry, I'm just organizing my piles of books here a little bit. I just got this book, so I started it, but I am not done with it yet. My roommate bought it for me, and it's called Evangeline of the Bayou, which she saw this and she was like, that's a Lydia book, look at that. There's scary monsters, wolves. It's set in Louisiana. It's a great time. And so far it is. It's about this like kind of like granny witch from the swamp and her little granddaughter who lives with her, and what they do is they basically help people out with their haunted problems. Like it's kind of like supernatural a little bit in that way too, and I'm loving it so far. Okay, Goosebumps. Goosebumps is this is just one Goosebump book. I've read many. Goosebumps is so fun. They're so formulaic and, you know, short, and some of them are terrible because there's so many, but like they are such a good bite-sized bit of scary. Like they never, like if you're a young kid and you're not used to scary, you can cut your teeth on Goosebumps and they probably won't traumatize you. So that's what I like about Goosebumps books. I bought a pack and I gave them to my nephew to read, but I wanted to read this one because it's a werewolf and I love werewolves. So I have not passed that one on to him yet. This kid's book, I got two here. I guess I'm not positive they're autumnal because I haven't read them yet, but Nell and the Nether Beast. Does that not look just wonderful? Once again, there's like a bed and breakfast setting and like it just seems like a good, cozy, vaguely paranormal, fun time. So I'm excited to read that one. And same with this was a cover by Berries and Bones. Did you look at that? Is that not? There was once an old bear who got lost in the forest looking for mushrooms, but don't worry, today is the old bear's birthday, and nothing bad ever happens on birthdays. Ominous. But like, it's cute, right? I think it's self-published. Not that that means anything. There's a lot of great self-published books. There's a lot of crappy traditional published books. So you are just taking a little bit more of a gamble because anyone can upload something to Amazon. So, you know, do a little bit of research before you add to cart if you're worried about that. I don't think I did. That's my only caveat. So I don't know much about this, but it looks adorable. Okay, and then my other kind of sliding into YA. Let's see, which ones did I read out of this pile? Horrid. My sister convinced me to read this one, a really good spooky book, and it is a spooky book. I think this is kind of like haunted house. Somebody can't remember her past and is kind of revisiting her past and things are going wrong, and it's kind of an unreliable narrator vibe, and it was really good. I really liked it. It was scary. I was kind of creeped out. Next, this one is really good for like the harvest transition, like September into early October, where you're like, ooh, I'm really in those maybe like, you know, gardening, witchy, cute vibes into like, ooh, the harvest and things are getting spooky now. This is can you tell I'm like a seasonal mood reader because these are such specific little couple week increments in the year. But I really love this book. I think Darlene Desi recommended it a while back, and she was right. It's called Small Favors, and it's about this little kind of like pioneer settlement town, so kind of like The Village a little bit that way. And her family makes honey, and just like, I don't remember the details right now, but it's like somebody shows up and like weird creepy things start happening. It was so atmospheric and I really enjoyed it, and I felt like it was a really good story while being really that kind of like subtly creepy, which I really like because that's it's almost more creepy than to me if it's just kind of like, oh, something's not right. I really enjoyed that one, so highly recommend. Of course, I'm always going to recommend the Twilight. These books, I am convinced, were so beloved. Oh, there's a lot of like reasons why, but the atmosphere is just unmatched. When you got the big old pine trees and the misty, cool, rainy days and the smell of the pine and the earth, like if you know, you know, if you're in these kind of places in the world, like I don't live in Washington, I live in the Midwest, but we have these kind of places here, and like it is just, you're out there and it's like, wow, it feels like Twilight out here. That's how it works. So these are just so fun. A good old vampire story that's more like a superhero story than a vampire story in certain ways, but they do have that fun gothic vibe to them at times. Next, I'm also hoping you guys can help me because I have a lot of books. I'm trying to tell you when I haven't read a book. And I have a lot of books here I haven't read. So I'm hoping you can help me narrow it down. Like, tell me which ones you've read if you liked it. Tell me if it's not worth it, because I really should get rid of some of them. So if there's some in the pile that you're like, nah, that's terrible, let me know. This book, I don't think I've ever seen someone else talk about it. Maybe I have, because how did I find it otherwise? But this is one of the best scary books I've ever read. It's middle grade, I think. Be careful. I mean, it's not like it's inappropriate, but it's scary. I read this as someone who has watched many horror movies, etc., read many scary books. This book was so good. But man, she knows how to be scary. And Catherine Arden is the author of The Bear and the Nightingale. And if you've read that, that book turns a corner and it's like, whoa, that's the scariest thing. Like the way she writes just invokes such a mental image. And I don't know, it really works with my imagination, I guess, because I'm always like right there, like, oh, that's terrifying. So love Small Spaces, recommended for adults and teenagers. Be careful for the youth, that might traumatize them a little bit. I have 3 other books that I think are YA here. I might have a few in the adult section that are YA, but I was unsure and I wasn't going to look it all up. So I have This Poison Heart, which I guess I don't really know if it's fall vibes. I'm like, oh, it's a poison garden, so maybe it's witchy. But this book really has intrigued me. I got it in like a book box. But I just haven't picked it up. So that one. Field of Screams I got from our local used bookstore. This looks fun and short. And it's, you know, like, look at the cornfields. It's a lot of, like, small spaces. So my expectations are probably too high for that one. And then this book, which I've wanted to read forever. Look at that spooky werewolf thing. And this one is full of illustrations. And I think this is, yeah, kids or middle grade. I'm pretty sure Ruby Granger recommended this one to me. Or to the general public. And I was like, that looks great. So I snapped it up. Okay, next. I have a couple poetry books. I got these 2 little collections. This one is of ghosts and goblins. And this is Poems Bewitched and Haunted. I've read at least half of this one. I think I've read a few poems out of this one. And then I have this collection, A Poem for Every Autumn Day, which, you know, you're just supposed to read a poem a day. And I really should start it. The problem with these things for me is I forget to start it or on time, so I have to catch up, or I forget a few days. I'm not really good at doing anything like every day. Did you see the date of my last YouTube video? But this is very fun and it's very cute, and it was a cover by, I'm not gonna lie. So anyway, maybe someone out here loves poetry. These are very cute little collections. This I got from Everyman, just from their website, I think. This I found at Barnes & Noble. I probably got this one from Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. Okay, what should we do next? I have a theology book to recommend. This is not themed, but seeing as we're all about, spooky supernatural things in October, my hope is to finally read Unseen Realities by R.C. Sproul, where he talks about, obviously, the biblical perspective and what we actually know in the Bible regarding Satan and angels and demons and such. So very excited to dig into this one. I really respect R.C. Sproul. So he's solid. He's not gonna go, usually, I mean, I haven't found him to go rogue or anything. Like, he's got a biblical perspective. Okay, I have these little fun, I love folklore. I could have pulled off my whole like folklore shelf and brought it over here because those are spooky and stuff, but I only grabbed these three, which are like specifically like superstitions and kind of what would you even call them, spooky lore, I guess, witchy lore kind of. So I have plant lore and legend, which this is more about plants and herbalism than folklore, I think, but it incorporates some of that in there, which is fun. And then I have an old book of old-fashioned superstitions, black cats and evil eyes, which that's just a fun little collection where you can read about what people used to worry about. The Old Wives' Lore, a book of old-fashioned tips and remedies. So those are my kind of little folklore-y books that I'm hoping to read some this year. I've never read through those ones either. I think I've paged through them a couple of times. Do I like my little ghost mug? Boo. Okay, let's do classics next, and then my last category will be just like general adult fiction. And those are probably the ones that I have the most unread in because I don't often keep the ones that I've read unless I really like them. So you can let me know. You can let me know if I should keep these or get rid of them, and maybe you'll find some recommendations for yourself. So, starting with classics first, I'll go through the ones that I've read. Sleepy Hollow. It's fine. It's very short. Look how thin it is. It's like a zine. The Penguin Book of Witches, which is very fun, especially if you are interested, because it's like the different accounts, like chilling real-life accounts of witches from medieval Europe through colonial America. So this is like the written history we have that they've collected and, reformatted for us. And I listened to this one, absolutely had a blast of a time. Very perfect if you're into like the Crucible or that time period in general. Like if you've watched the movie The Witch, like Salem witch trial type stuff. Very interesting. The Crucible is a play. You could get to watch the movie, you could read the play. I've read this. I really like this play. I think it's very interesting and does a good job just painting a story around what went down there. It's not exactly what went down there, but there's a lot of elements at play in the play. And you, as you look back at that time period, you can kind of see how all these different things like could have led to this situation. The witch trials. So those are interesting. There's also the House of Seven Gables. I've read that one. That one was a little bit more of a slog to get through. The Crucible is much more fun. And I think I've read a couple other books around that time period as well. I actually have a lot of the because I've been writing a long many part paper regarding like evil and how we are to respond to it, how we aren't to respond to it, how we are to judge it and not judge it, from the Christian responsibility kind of point. I kind of jokingly call it my thesis. It's not, it's just a paper I'm writing, but it's like, it's difficult for me. And I have a lot of like bind ups of like the historical writings of like Cotton Mathers and, the Hammer of the Witch and like all these different books that, and writings that people were, what is the word I'm looking for? We're influencing the minds of the people of this time. And some of them, yikes. Big yikes. Anyway, moving on from that topic. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I really like this classic as well. I don't think, it's not very like, how do I say this? Action-packed, you know? It's kind of more philosophical, so realize that when you're getting into it. I don't have vampire books here. I mean, I have Twilight, but I've read Dracula, I've read Camilla, whatever the girl one is, that vampire one. I've read Interview with the Vampire. Those are all fun. The Haunting of Hill House. I just finished this last year. I loved this book. If you've watched the show, The Haunting of Hill House, it's not the same thing at all. It's not the same. They took the concept of a haunted house and they took the name of the book and they took some of the characters' names. It's not the same thing at all. So just know that before you get into this is a totally different ride. I almost think of it as like if they had a house, like kind of like how Bly Manor was a totally different story than The Haunting of Hill House. That's how you should approach this book. Like, oh, maybe the house is the same house that they use. That's the only thread that's gonna run through. Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I have read a version of this book. I don't think I've ever read the full thing. I think what I read was like an abridged version when I was younger, but I remember really liking it. So I should probably pick this one up. This is a collection. I have not read the selected writings yet, but I have read the first story listed here, which is The Yellow Wallpaper, which is one of my favorite like horror writings of all time. It's so good. It's so well done. It's a short story, so you can just you can buy just that short story in a little pamphlet kind of thing. Highly recommend it. It ends so creepily. It's so good. I feel like The Yellow Wallpaper is like what people would lead you to believe the bell jar is or something like that, you know, where like I like the bell jar just fine, but The Yellow Wallpaper is so short, but it's just so well done and condensed and creepy at the end. Now we're getting into books I have not read yet, so I'm gonna go a little faster. The Turn of the Screw, Another Ghost Stories, a classic. Ghost and Other Plays. I don't really know if this is spooky or not, but it says ghost on it. The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Oh, the cats are crying. Which I'm very excited to read. I love the Bronte sisters' works, but this might be like the only one I haven't read yet. There might be more, but I love Wuthering Heights. I love Jane Eyre. Those are perfect to read in spooky season as well. And I read the other one, the one about the pastor. That's neither here nor there. The October Country, The Halloween Tree, Something Wicked This Way Comes. These are classic Halloween spookies by Ray Bradbury. I've read none of them. I've tried to pick them up a few times. Like I think every other year I'm like, I'm gonna read one of those, and I just can't get into it. I can't get past the first page. So I'm either picking it up at really bad times or his writing and my brain don't jive. I think I'm gonna try The Halloween Tree because it looks like a kid's book. It's short and like there's little illustrations. So that might lead me to like either keep or discard these two. And then I have The Bloody Chamber and I think this other short stories too, maybe not, by Angela Carter. This is kind of an odd cover. I've seen it with like that all white cover with like that creepy animal head door knocker thing. Like that's a really beautiful copy, but I'm excited to read that. I have The Divine Comedy, Dante's Inferno. This book here is just the Inferno, but I have the whole series. That's been on my list for a long time. Is it Halloween, spooky month inspired? Not really, but it's creepy. It's about hell. That should scare us, right? And then I have the Penguin Book of Exorcisms. This was part of my research. My research paper. That's why I own this book. And then I have two big collections, which I've read some stuff out of. Mary Shelley, she wrote Frankenstein, but this is a whole collection of her horror stories. And then Edgar Allan Poe, look at that chunky boy. 73 short stories and poems. And I mean, I've read The Raven. I've read a few other of his things as well. So good stuff. Now on to the last section. We're getting there, guys. If you stuck it out with me this long, thanks. Oh, I hope you're enjoying. I hope you're getting some good book recommendations. And if you have recommendations for me, let me know. I clearly have too many books, but you know me. There's always more. All right. So out of these books that I've read, there's not many. There's not many. I either didn't grab the ones that I read or I've just kind of passed most of them along. I have a couple though. I must have messed up my pile a little bit. Okay, so caveat, there's some Stephen King in here. I've read a lot of Stephen King, but I've listened to it. So I don't own a lot of his books. So like It, Misery, I think I've read Misery. Definitely It. What's the Cujo, the Shining, and I think more as well. I've read a fair amount of his books, and I enjoy them, despite the fact that I dislike some of his writing styles and just the random ickiness that he puts into it. I'm not a fan of, and he's not very good at endings. I really hated the ending of It, but good stories. He's a good storyteller. So caveat is there's some Stephen King books in here. The first one, The Cycle of the Werewolf. I never knew this book existed. I think Raylene from Books Unbound. Oh, perfect. I'm wearing a Books Unbound hat. You can buy this hat on their website if you're a fan. They have a great podcast, a great Patreon. I think they're like the only Patreon I subscribe to is Books Unbound and Ariel Bissett. Because I find it really worth it. They offer a lot of good extra things and content if you have their Patreon and support their podcast. But this is a Books Unbound hat, so shout out to Books Unbound, give them a try. But Raylene had mentioned this one. I'm not sure she liked it very much, but I picked it up and I just really loved it. It's like tiny little serial, I don't know if he wrote it for a newspaper, stories. So there's like 12 really short little articles about what's happening in this small town every full moon and how they're starting to respond to it. And it does tell a full story all the way through, but it's like each full moon, this is what's happening. And there's like creepy pictures and stuff in here. I loved it, but we've established I love werewolves, so. And the next book I read, this book disturbed me like nothing else. Like out of all the creepy shows and movies I've watched, out of all the books, this book unsettled me. This book I had to put down a few times because I was like, So really upsetting subject matter. I'm pretty sure this was like a creepypasta before creepypasta was a thing, like a Reddit serialized writing collection that the author bound up into a book. And it's really unnerving. Like, it's about this boy and you're reading from his perspective as he bumbles through his life and weird things are happening. He doesn't know what they are, but you as the reader are like realizing what it is. And it's basically this creepy, awful man who's like wants to kidnap him and do terrible things to him, and how close he comes to getting him throughout his life many times. And like traumatizing, disturbing. Like, I think at one point you find out, the kid doesn't realize it, but you realize it, that like he was living under their porch. It's very disturbing. Okay, up next, I have, none of these have I read. Such Sharp Teeth. I got this in a blind date with a book package. It's werewolves, apparently. I don't know if it actually is. Maybe it's a metaphor. But it seems like something I would like, so I've held on to it. Stephen King's 1922. I heard about this. It intrigued me, and it's real short, which for Stephen King, that's a feat. So I think it's a short story. Never Whistle at Night. This is like indigenous folklore short story collection, which is just right up my alley. So I'm very, very excited. I think it's from Canada, but I've really wanted to read this. Folklore, like the Native American and indigenous folklore, scares me like no other folklore, and I also love it like no other folklore, so I am excited to read that. And next, Witches of New York. I don't know if this is spooky. It's set in New York City in the spring of 1880. Maybe it's more dark academia. I'm not sure, but it's witchy. I read the cover at one point. I was very intrigued by it, so it's on my list to read. I got this from my used bookstore, My Sister the Serial Killer. I heard this talked about a lot when it came out. I feel like every time someone talks about it, it re-intrigues me. Like, I keep hearing about it in my life. And it's really not that long of a book, so I picked it up to read. House of Hollow. Look at that cover. I'm not gonna lie, that's part of why I bought it. Once again, I've heard people talk about this a lot, enough that it's like, and they're always like, whether they liked it or hated it, they were like, it really stuck with me. I can never unread it. My mind keeps going back to it. So I guess I'll be traumatized too. Okay, I started this book and on a trip that I had, and then like the trip was over and I put it down. So I haven't gone back to it yet. But I really want to. This is Dracul. I think Darling Desi recommended this a while back. Well, you can see how far I got in it. I am very intrigued by this book. Like, it is like written like, and I think there was questions around like the author too, like, did you really research it? Like, did this really happen? Is this based on a true story? Like, I think that was kind of the buzz around it when it came out. And it's just like this guy writing about it, like he was experiencing these things and he was there, and I'm very excited to read this book, and it's hefty and big, and I haven't been able to pick it back up, and I'd probably have to start over from scratch because it's been a while, and that can feel very defeating to me. So I'm thinking I might listen to it on Audible, because that will just like get me past that. Re-listening to the first part will go much faster than if I try to sit down and read it. Home Before Dark. Riley Sager. I know he's like a big name in this game these days. I think this is his first one, or his first one that made it big. My sister told me she really liked this one and I should give it a try. So I think it's haunted house vibes, which I love. Dr. Sleep. I read The Shining. I love The Shining. I've seen the Dr. Sleep movie and I loved it. So I have the book. But let's be real. I've always listened to Stephen King on Audible, or audiobook, I should say. And this is a fairly hefty one, so I should probably listen to him on audiobook if I want to get through it. Especially seeing as I already know the story. Okay, next. I have My Best Friend's Exorcism. Seems spooky as heck. I love that this looks like an old like 80s, 90s VHS movie poster thing. A big part of what sold me on it. I've also heard people talk about it, which seemed like a fun story. So, spooky. And then I have this Dark Academia, If We Were Villains. It's like Shakespeare-esque, I think, which really drew me to it. I heard people talking about it. I was like, that's going home with me. But I think it's popular amongst people who like the dark academia stuff. So like, what's the one they always like? Donna Tartt, The Secret History. I haven't read that one yet. I have it on audiobook because it's so long. And I started it, I think it was the same trip that I was reading Dracula on, and the trip ended and I did not continue, and I was enjoying it. So my plan is to get back and read The Secret History. And I would like to read If We Were Villains. These two books, I don't remember how I found them. Was it Neil Gaiman's audiobook from the cheap seats? I don't think so, but maybe. I think I maybe saw them and they were just cover purchases. I've never really seen them since or heard anyone else talk about them, so I don't know if they're any good or not, but I have not been able to get rid of them because I've done all the things like read the synopsis, see if you're still interested, read the first chapter, see if you're still interested. I am, and I really just need to pick them up. But they're by the same author, Kelly Link. Stranger Things Happen. Look at that. It's like Nancy Drew. It looks so fun. And then Pretty Monsters. And I've had these on my bookshelf for over 10 years, I think. So you let me know if you've read these. I am so curious. I am so curious if people out there have read them. I mean, I could go on Goodreads and see if there's like reviews, but I don't know. I should probably just read them and see for myself now. I've sure had them long enough. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you for joining me on this extremely rambly 42-minute long book recommendation. I hope you saw some books you liked. Let me know if there's a book on here that I said I haven't read yet that I need to get my, rear in gear and read them. But I hope you have a wonderful autumn. If you would like another winter recommendation reading list from me, please let me know. It's already percolating. Like, I know I am a seasonal mood reader, so I have this whole list of books that are like winter books in my mind. And they're not all Christmas. In fact, very few of them are Christmas. So let me know. Winter is a very long season in the Midwest, so we need a lot of winter books. I would be happy to provide, as well as spring and summer books, but I feel like for me, reading times are mostly autumn and winter, so because you want to be outside in the spring and the summer more. So yeah, just let me know. I'd be beyond happy to make another one. I love pulling the books off my shelf and organizing them. So thanks for joining me, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.